Ramaya Ramabhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pateye Namaha. Bala chapter number 14, the conclusion of the horse sacrifice. The recitation begins now. The horse that was sent to make the round of the earth came back safe and victorious. And on the sacrificial grounds erected on the banks of the river Sarayu, priests who had sounded the depths of the Vedas went through the rites of Pravargya, Upashada, and other incidental offerings as laid down in the Mimamsa and the Shrauta Sutras. They adored the devatas that presided over the various details of the sacrifice. During the morning savana, they invited Indra to partake of his portion of the offering, and hymned high the sin-destroying Soma, and the other two savanas were properly gone through in their turn. Every part of the great sacrifice was performed without any defect or interruption. The priests omitted nothing, they altered nothing. The mantras were chanted without any fault of meter or intonation. And all the days the sacrifice went on, you could not come upon anyone who was afflicted with fatigue, hunger, or thirst, nor an unlettered man, nor one but had 100 disciples. The Brahmanas, the sages, the sky-clad, the old, the infirm, the sick, the boys, and the women were ever seen feeding heartily. The viands were so sweet and delicious that no sooner you rose full from a meal than the desire came upon you to sit down to it again, and you regretted the limited capacity of your stomach. The king was feeding countless millions, but he was never satisfied and ever blamed himself for his inability to give more. So he gave directions to the superintendents that in every part of the vast grounds, food and clothing should be distributed without stint to those that might ask for it. And the numerous kitchens, the cooks piled up day after day huge hills of food of every kind. They were marvels of the culinary art, and very soon disappeared down the joyful throats of the untold millions that came from the various quarters of the earth to view that famous rite. And Brahmanas, neatly dressed and gaily decked, served the guests, while many others assisted them. They rose from the meal all too reluctantly, and praised in no measured terms the excellence of the feast and the well-appointed service. Our delight and joy know no bounds, Your Majesty, cried they. May every happiness be thine. And the words were sweet unto the king's ears. During the intervals of the sacrifice, Brahmanas of great learning and high powers of speech entered into various discussions with one another, and with a view to win laurels on that memorable occasion. On each day of the sacrifice during the 3 savanas, Brahmanas skilled in the spreading of the sacred grass conducted the rites presided over by Uma and the other deities. Among those that took part in the sacrifice, there was none who was not a master of the Vedas and the Vedangas, not any who had not kept the Chandrayana and the other vows, nor one who had not a profound and a varied acquaintance with the Shastras, nor could your eye rest in the king's audience on any Brahmana who was not an able disputant. And when they came to that part of the sacrifice where the sacrificial posts were planted, they drove into the ground 21 posts of arm's length from one another near the altar place of Agni, a post of Shlesh Mataka with another of Devadaru to the north and south of it, again 3 Bilva posts north and south of the first 3, and again 3 mahogany posts north and south of these 15. They were made of tough, flawless wood, each 504 inches long and octagonal in shape. They were smoothly planed, and the Brahmanas, well versed in the theory and the art of sacrifice, decked them with bands of gold, flowers, perfumes, and rich cloths. Planted in rows of 7, they looked not unlike the constellation of the Great Bear. Before they were planted, skilled brahmanas laid out the fire altar of bricks specifically prepared according to the sutras. It was 18 stones high and shaped like the Garuda, facing the east, with spread tail and wings adorned with golden plates. To the posts were bound, as enjoined in the rules of sacrifice, serpents and birds dedicated to Indra and to the other deities. And on the occasion of the offering up of the animals, the consecrated horse and about 300 other animals were tied to the posts, land, living and aquatic, tame and wild, beasts of the wood and fowls of the air. On the spot known as Samitra, slaughtering ground, the queens of Dasaratha sprinkled the dead horse with consecrated water, reciting the appropriate mantras, went around it right and left, and with a golden needle marked on its stomach the 3 places for the priests to cut at. Then Kaushalya, with a view to lay up great merit, abode for a night with the horse and felt no repugnance at touching the carcass. The chief priests, Brahma, Hota, Atvaryu, and the Udgata, took by the hand the Mahishi, Vavata, Palakali, and Parivriti, and gave them as presents by the king and handed them back to him, receiving rich gifts in exchange. Thereafter, the Advaryu cut out that part of the horse known as Tejini that corresponds to the Vapa of other animals and offered it to the god of fire on braided water reeds. The king smelt the smoke and his sins were washed away. And after him, the 11 other priests offered into the fire with appropriate rites the various parts of the horse. The horse sacrifice extends over many days and includes several complicated rituals, of which 3 are the most important. On the first day, the Agnishtoma with 4 stomas. On the second day, the Uttya. On the third, the Atiratra. And the remaining days were given up to the Jyotishtoma, Ayushtoma, and the 2 Atiratras, Abhijit, Vishvajit, and Aptyoryama, and every one of them in strict conformity with the rules laid down for it and with heartfelt goodwill to the performer. Thus did Dasaratha perform this grand sacrifice, revealed to the world by Brahma, successfully and without omitting the least detail, and with a glad heart did he present the Hota, Advaryu, the Brahma, and the Udgata with the dominions of his east, west, south, and north, respectively. They accepted them joyfully and said to the king, O Majesty, religious observances, the study of the holy Vedas, and the teaching thereof come easy to us and are more congenial than the government of kingdoms. What shall we do with them? You are fitted for the task, and God has specifically placed you in the world, therefore. So take them back and give us in return gold and gems, horses and cattle. And Dasaratha gave to every one of them 10 lakhs of kine, 10 crores of gold coins, and 4 of silver, which they took to Rishi Shringa and Vashishta to equitably divide amongst them. They received their shares gladly and said to the king, We are more than satisfied. Dasaratha distributed untold wealth among the poor, and a Brahmana who made bold to approach him with a request for something more was rewarded with the diamond bracelet on his arm. With tears of joy coursing down his aged cheeks, the monarch reverently touched the ground with his forehead before the assembled multitudes, whose contentment and joy knew no bounds, while the priests and the Brahmanas spoke their heartfelt blessings in the grand and majestic chants of the Vedic hymns. The heart of the old king danced with joy in that he had successfully performed the famous horse sacrifice, so difficult for ordinary monarchs. It burnt away the sins that stood in the way of his being blessed with an offspring, and opened to him wide the gates of heaven. He then approached Rishi Shringa and prayed to him with joined palms. O holy sir, deign to point out to me the means whereby I could have a child to cheer my old age. Let not thy noble heart be cast down, replied the sage. 4 sons will be born unto you, whose eternal glory will illumine your noble line, and mine be the care to bring about the happy event. Mangalam Koshalendraya Mahaniya Gunapatiye Chakravarti Dhanurjaya Sarvabhaumaya Mangalam. So this is a little controversial topic about horse sacrifice. So I just want to say that the sacrifices that were conducted in Treta Yuga are a little different from the ones that we can see in Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, animal sacrifices are strictly not allowed because there are no authorized brahmanas remaining. Kali, everyone is a Shudra. So we cannot perform such sacrifices. And it may seem a little controversial, but remember that this helped bring forth Rama on this earth. And therefore, it is completely holy. Haribo.